Cacao. Introduction of cacao. In the latter half of the 17th century, a Spanish galleon transported pure Mesoamerican criollo across the Pacific to the Philippines. Spain colonized the Philippines as the entrepot for the exchange of global emporium of goods like cacao, Indian tea, porcelain cup from China and spices from Southeast Asia. The first migration of cacao outside its American homeland appears to be pure criollo leaving the port of Acapulco, Mexico on Manila galleons. Crews carry chocolate on board for drinking on ship. It became the source of most cacao in the Philippines. History. Cocoa was first introduced in the Philippines by the Spanish colonizers 4 centuries ago. The country was the first in Asia to actively produce cocoa beans in the latter part of the 1600s in San Jose, Batangas. By the 1950s, cocoa became a highly profitable commodity as commercial cocoa farms and processing facilities were established. 1950s to 1980s. Investment in processing facilities for cacao and chocolate manufacturing. National Coffee and Cacao Development Program was launched. Philippine Coffee and Cacao Institute was organized. Establishment of commercial-scale cocoa plantation in Mindanao. The government provided tax incentives for investments in cacao growing, private investments, research activities and facilities. 1980s to present. Production declined from 20,000 metric tons to 6,000 tons. Factors. Agrarian Reform 1988. Plantation to smallholder production. International cocoa prices declined while input costs increased. Lack of support services. Cocoa pod board increase and cost of power labor issues. Drivers of change. International cacao prices increased since year 2000. Technical assistance for production, seedling and cacao pod board control. Post-harvest and marketing support schemes. Factors of production. Farmers require inputs like production loans, planting materials, fertilizers, pesticide tools, labor, technology and extension services. To convert the beans harvest into dried form they need fermentation and drying facilities, sorting and grading tools and equipment, packaging materials, storage facilities, market and price information, transport facilities, or selling arrangements. Production trends. Cacao production expansion is recognized to provide significant contribution to poverty alleviation and sustainable agriculture. Achievements and lessons learned from past programs can be capitalized to escalate upgrading and expansion. Farmers expressed willingness for equitable growth and development. Support of institutions and policies. Cacao is now included in the pipeline of support for priority high-value commercial crops. Good germplasm collection that is at par with the world's best materials. No new land conversion. Utilizing barely 5% of existing monocropped coconut farms could contribute significantly to national economic growth. Recognized capability to supply good quality fermented beans to the global market which pays premium for quality beans. Expanding domestic demand and growing opportunities in creating rural enterprises for cacao products processing. Opportunities and constraints. An opportunity for cacao was its premium price in the market. It can also be intercropped with coconut and banana. It is also supported by several government programs. There are also some constraints like inadequate fermentation facilities and skills on fermentation, low farm productivity and inadequate post-harvest facilities and basic infrastructures. Present status and government programs. Ampersand policies. Is the country a net exporter or importer? What interventions made it so? According to BIS data from 2000 to 2012 show a reduction in cocoa cultivation area from 12,077 hectares in 2000 to 9,337 hectares by 2012. The number of fruit-bearing trees also declined from 4.6 million to 3.8 million in the same period. Correspondingly, production output declined from 6,628 metric tons to 4,831 metric tons. demand for inputs of production also showed a consistent decline from 12,909 metric tons in 2000 to 6,992 metric tons by 2012. According to the data from United Nations Commodity Trade Statistics, the Philippines is a net importer of cacao. The Philippines imports various products derived from cacao such as the beans, shells or husks, cacao paste, butter, fat, oil, cocoa powder, chocolate and other food containing cocoa. Among all these products, processed food such as chocolate from cocoa is imported the most. In terms of export, the country exports only cocoa beans, cocoa paste, cocoa butter, fat, oil, cocoa powder, and chocolate, although in much smaller amount parallel to what we buy from abroad. We obviously import a lot more products of cacao than export. We do not have the technology for cocoa production and processing. Although the country's demand for cacao products is significantly high, the annual cacao production only ranged from 5,000 to at most 6,000 metric tons. A huge factor affecting the export competitiveness of Philippine cocoa is the lack of post-harvest knowledge as well as equipment and facilities to ensure bean quality for chocolate manufacturing. It can also be considered that we might not have a comparative advantage for cocoa production and processing. Therefore, importing of cacao products would be a lot more rational. The resources which are supposed to be utilized for cacao production could be allocated for the production of other crops to promote agricultural productivity. Agricultural and Fisheries Modernization Law R8435 aims to modernize the agricultural sector in terms of technological improvement such as investment in research and physical capital as well as improvement in the sector's technical efficiency through training programs. IPP 2014 to 2016. The transformation of cacao production into a commercial production activity, particularly manufacturing cacao to tea. The program intends to manufacture products for export given that the raw materials to be used are insufficient amount. Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. The law's objective is to distribute land to small farmers from wealthy landowners. The democratization of land ownership caused the fragmentation of cocoa plantation as the organizations of worker beneficiaries were inadequately prepared to manage large plantations. RA 7900 or the High Value Crop Development Program Act. This prioritizes the intensification of cocoa production. However, local supply still cannot meet the domestic demand. In 2011, the country's cacao production was only able to satisfy 25% of the domestic demand. BPS Product Certification Scheme. The policy's purpose is to ensure that cocoa products that will be sold domestically or for export meet the requirements of Philippine Standard Quality and/or Safety Certification Mark Scheme. Philippine National Standards for Cocoa Products. The PNS covers the cocoa products such as cocoa beans and tabli as well as the Code of Agricultural Practices for cacao beans in the country. Shared Service Facilities (SSF) project. The SSF project is a major component of the MSME development program of the DTI. It aims to improve the productivity and competitiveness of MSMEs through providing them with machinery, equipment, tools, systems, skills, and knowledge under a shared system. Cacao farmers and cacao farming interventions. The Philippines has been producing cacao since the 1700s. It offers a good source of income for smallholder farmers in the Philippines. Per the Department of Agriculture Statistics, in 1990, the area of cocoa planted was about 18,377 hectares. By 2006, this area had declined to less than 10,000 hectares. During the same period, reported production fell from 9,990 tons to about 5,400 tons, with two-thirds of the production coming from Davao region alone. The highest-ranking producer of cacao is Davao del Sur with 1,680.79 metric tons, followed by Davao Oriental with 506.16 metric tons, and Davao del Norte with 342.03 metric tons. Filipino cacao farmers are still faced with productivity challenges like low productivity and unsustainable farming practices, aging cacao trees, competition for land area with other crops, changing weather conditions, pests and diseases. A Cacao Industry Development Association of Mindanao, Inc., SADAMI, official pushes for cacao farmer training first before cacao seedlings distribution as a solution to the growing demand of cacaos in the domestic and international market. Cacao Farming Enterprise Advancement for Sustainability and Trade, CACAO Feast, aims to address low productivity through increased farmers' access to improved production inputs and cacao farming practices, to improve success as a cacao business enterprise through farmers' organization and improved access to cacao information, and to improve farmers' motivation and interest in business enterprise and their technical business skills. OFW Para SA Magsasaka (OPM) has launched a project that encourages overseas Filipino workers are urged to invest through OPM, which will manage the investments to fund the farmers' equipment and infrastructure.